essentialism is all encompassing. I feel everything has to be essential, and whatever is essential may not be minimal. Like how we were like how I was quoting about craft. When you work with craft, you have to do like put in motives and historical elements you have to work with. So there, it is essential to have that story and heritage getting carried into the design, and the outcome may not be very minimal, but it's essential.
This is Audiogyan, and I am your host Kedar Nimkar. Welcome to a deep dive into the minds of luminaries from the Indian creative world. Yeah, we'll start off with our today's conversation, and the first thing which obviously struck me in your research while I was doing your research is you have done architecture, you have like designed lifestyle products, you have designed furniture, you have designed jewelry, you have designed accessories. How do you define your work, right? Like you have a diverse interests from motorcycling, boxing, cooking. Like how did that all come to be, and also what do you classify yourself as a designer?
These are just, I feel life skills. One needs to navigate through life. Life and career is definitely a big part of it. So you have vocation and avocation. So each they address the other thing. So as a person, your journey usually, like in our kind of work, which is like you can call creative work, so where you have intuitive understanding, so which is mostly informed by your own understanding and experience. If it was something technical like a physical trade, you may not as well be informed by your life experience, because you can actually separate it. But in design and creative fields, I think that intuition which you cultivate over time addresses your work. So in that sense, I'm more of old school. I'm inspired by the Greeks, the Persian, the Iberian polymaths, and what we call Renaissance men. So we had all these people who used to study biology and philosophy, like Aristotle. So that's quite fascinating for me. So I think that gives a person all these fields. Now the education has become very specialized. You become a specialist. So a doctor can be a philosopher because it gives him different kind of understanding, of how things work and how humans, uh, behave. So it makes him a better doctor, definitely. If he's a philosopher, like we talk about Avicenna. He was a philosopher and a doctor. So that's why they're so relevant today also. I mean, like, with so much of new information, new technology, these people are still relevant because we haven't been able to produce such people in our times, because everyone's a specialist and very focused, and it's more of a trade skill. They're not it takes away passion, when you become a specialist. So I try, like, to learn from different things and how that can help me as a designer, as a creative.
Got it. Yeah, but do you kind of strictly try to call it not a multidisciplinary designer, or like you focus on craft and like certain artifacts that you want to create in your creative process, but rest of the disciplines are just to inform you at a very subconscious level? Is that the understanding, or you engage in multiple places to like really master
There's
every
no
aspect that
such
you?
thing. So there's no such thing as, I haven't. There's no deliberate attempt to learn from this and that. It's just my journey. I've been able to pick up these things. Like motorcycles. When you say, pretty much everyone, cars or motorcycle, you're like, it becomes part of you when you grow up. I've been fortunate enough to, get it into profession when I used to design I wanted to be an automotive designer. So that hobby became part of the profession as I moved along designing these Formula student race cars. And that's how, things kept and, I was able to keep them. One thing as a creative, I feel, you have to be uh, kid, like Renzo Piano and a lot of other people have said, you only grow till 7. That I feel is quite true, because you're always a kid.
Hmm.
So that playfulness and
Correct, correct.
that playfulness keeps you young and more hungry for new things, more explorations and things like that. So that way, I'm able to pick up things on the way, like for me, every new thing is fascinating. So last year I started cycling, now I've taken it quite seriously. I've got a Pinarello. So that's, I couldn't think of it last year, like that I would become so serious in it. So for me, it's everything is quite passionate. Whatever I do, I'm quite passionate about it.
Got it. Got it. So is it kind of safe to say that every experience is kind of going to enrich you as a better human being, as a better creative person, and then somewhere those instances or certain things you connect, and then like eventually it just becomes part of your second nature or something like that, right?
Sort of, you can say that, some more than others, I would say, some
Hmm, hmm,
things
hmm.
more than other, some
Correct,
experiences more
correct,
than
correct.
other, I would say.
Yeah, yeah. No, I completely resonate with this thought because at Audiogan also I've like tried to stick to designers, but yeah, just because of my personal interest and curiosity, I've gone from filmmakers to lyricists to musicians to script writers to editors to puppeteers. So it's
Hmm.
very enriching because I can see now some common patterns and common dots across these conversations, and they definitely enrich you in your task because some things are done nicely in certain domains and you can borrow those first principles or borrow those learnings and then apply, which I'm going to ask you about from woodworking. But then like who do you or how do you define a designer, right? Like who according to you is a designer?
I would say anyone who does an act that is, thoughtful with a particular goal to achieve.
Hmm.
Uh, it can be any act, anyone who's doing anything thoughtfully to achieve something can be a designer, So now it's become
Hmm.
a profession where we actually get paid to, do something. But any day-to-day thing, anyone who's taken up a task, to achieve something, that he's a designer, I feel. And then it has to be a new specific task, it can't be a repetitive task. It has to be a new task, I would say, with a motive to, discover something, in terms of making, not as a scientific discovery or anything, but, to develop something.
Hmm.
Maybe he's a farmer,
Hmm.
trying to come up with a way to do something, just making a new kind of a scarecrow or something, that's in itself is can be termed as, design thought, and can get
Correct.
more complex on the way.
Right. Well, but you talk about essentialism, which is going to be a separate question. But uh, like, what would be then the essential quality to become a designer? Because if it's just thoughtfulness, I think there could be multiple disciplines where that is required. So, which means designers are required in almost all disciplines. But
True.
are there certain inherent kind of qualities which or traits which can like help us define that by a designer hai?
That I would say, a keen and honest, observing quality, without any kind of preconceived thought or bias. That is quite important, a professionally when we design, that's quite important, I feel, because when we have any preconceived ideas of what the thing should be in terms of how it looks or how it feels, that actually hinders. So the outcome has to be like, only thing I feel, we have to look at the outcome. It has to be beautiful, maybe
Hmm.
functional, and if the intent is to make a very practical product, it has to be functioning beautifully. If it's some sort of a medical equipment, surgical equipment, that it has to function beautifully, or it can be something that is more on poetic level, where it has to, like, it's like working with craft, you have to work with a lot of history. So I feel the outcome has to be, it has to do justice to the history and tradition, heritage of it. Because if we already have any preconceived ideas, that totally hinders, so you have to, like, take a clean sheet approach and then start from there. The idea, the outcome has to be beautiful. For that, I feel the essential thing would be, one has to be a keen and honest, unbiased observer.
Got it. Got it. So if we take example of, say, the loop product that you have designed, which is kind of a simple, actually a loop. You've played with the word, with the spelling of it, but you like,
Yeah.
there is certain thing which you call it as essentialism, and there is minimalism, right? So if you could help us sort of decode that, and from my understanding, whatever I read from your articles and other things that I have consumed, it seems that essentialism is more inclusive, while minimalism,
Mhm.
yeah, it's almost like nihilism, like nikalte jao, like you just keep removing until the purest form on factor is remaining. So where are you on that? And maybe you can take loop as an example and help us understand what do you mean by essentialism.
So, like you said, very rightly, essentialism is all encompassing. I feel everything has to be essential, and whatever is essential may not be minimal. Like how we were, like how I was quoting about craft. When you work with craft, you have to do, like, put in motives and historical elements. You have to work with. So there, it is essential to have that story and heritage getting carried into the design, and the outcome may not be very minimal, but it's essential. So minimal is more of a quantitative aspect, while essentialism, I think, it's more qualitative. So everything that is minimal can be essential, but not every minimal thing is essential. So in terms of loop, the idea
Hmm.
was to make the basic shape that could hold eggs. I cook a lot, so it's usually difficult to, when you get the eggs out of the fridge, you usually keep it on the kitchen counter, and it just rolls, and it rolls unpredictably because of the shape. So I used to have this tongs, so I used to keep on that, and that had half the loop. So I thought, how about just have a tray which is just like that, and you can just and this goes away, and that shape is such that there's no design in it. So that's why it's one
Hmm.
of the one of my examples of a product that is physically minimal and also essential at the same time. You couldn't do less than that, something like that.
Hmm. Hmm. Interesting. So you basically, when I see the loop, and I hope we can plug it here somewhere. But anyway, so when we look at the loop, it's kind of the bare bone which is required to
Mhm.
hold that egg in a particular form, but it looks minimalistic. Um,
Mhm.
I'm kind of like still trying to understand the essential aspect of it, right?
Yeah. So because of the ball it rolls. If it's an egg, it just stays, because of the shape, it's
Hmm.
unidirectional, right? So it just stays.
Hmm.
So uh, in terms of essentialism, this was the I needed something that's very versatile, which could go on the kitchen counter when you're using it. Otherwise, you can just hang it with the spoons and ladles,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
it just as a form, it won't take much space, and it's very well balanced. Uh, so this is something that is essential and minimal at the same time, in that sense.
Interesting. Interesting. And then you also draw a lot of inspiration from sociology, philosophy, anthropology, and frankly, the more interviews I'm doing, even I feel the need for going very wide in terms of your interest areas and appreciation to like then converge if required. But otherwise, going
Mhm.
wide is also fine. And in this series, I've interviewed Sushmita Mohanty also, which kind of really contests the idea of STEM kind of education, right? Like going very specific and then having that silo, right?
Mhm.
But then in your case, because you have these diverse things, how does it inform your understanding of, say, human experiences or translate into the products that you create? And you can take any example of your product that you made. It could be lamps, or it could be any jewelry that has kind of um, uh, inspired from these various interest areas.
I would say, these disciplines give a person an intuitive understanding, which is not very tangible, not able to put in words. It's something that enriches the skill. It gives us a tool to get into the depths of human behavior, and understand the social and cultural diversity. We as humans, we are becoming more, we are pretty much global now, so we use the same tools across the globe, in all the continents, pretty much use the same things, which was not the case before. Say 1,000 years ago, cultures were localized, civilizations were localized. So now more than ever, we need that, because otherwise we see a lot of issues, socially, culturally. We're not able to gel well with uh, other cultures, no matter how much we say we are advanced, especially in the West. Then they're not able to absorb people from the East. So this has to be part of early education, I feel. Not just design, but any this has to be education 101. As little children, we have to be educated in cultural studies, social studies, because there's no specific demand for this in industrialized economy. So this is left to those specialized historians and anthropologists to pursue. But I think everyone should know and understand, because this basically makes us better human beings. So when coming back to design, I would say most of my work, what I have done with craft, I think that has that, because I have to be very sensitive to the history of the craft. And now, it's not just used in that earlier context, where, the most of the consumers for this craft were the royalty, Indian royalties, to be specific. But now it has to be, it has to transform into something that is more acceptable globally, in the luxury
Globally.
market, I would say. That actually keeps a craft going, because that audience is over, that Indian royalty is not there anymore. So if we don't translate to luxury goods, then that craft is on the verge of dying out, so the craftsmen are not, they can't sustain. So for that, I need to understand the past and the present global culture, so these products become more relevant different regions of the world, I would say.
Hmm. Hmm. Can you give any example of like a product that has kind of emerged out of your this background, and like maybe a little indigenous, but then because of these wearing multiple hats, it kind of transpired into something globally appealing?
So that I would say we the Kaiser series we have done. It's a table which is inspired by the Moorish patterns. We also have it in India in terms of the Mughal geometric patterns, which is pretty much the universal language geometry, Moorish geometry, which was
Hmm.
very well accepted across the world. So I was quite surprised with that because it also looks to the beginnings of the craft. Where it was inspired by a Persian alchemist. The craft was actually invented by a Persian alchemist who came up with the idea of oxidizing this metal, zinc and copper alloy. So it actually is relevant for that time and this time and any region as well. So uh, I feel intuitively that's something I could not have designed with that depth, was it not for my little understanding of history and culture and anthropology and how the market works and how the craftsman works. So it actually captures all of that very well.
Interesting. Cool. So I spoke to multiple designers over a period of time, and I think if I in obviously I'm a designer, so I can safely say that design is kind of a response to a problem, or like could be a little more functional also. While I'm on the cusp that
Mhm.
design can also be like beautiful and whatever those things, when like there is a strong sense of
Mhm.
aesthetic to design also, but it's safe to say that art is a purely like a self-expression, right? So where are you on that, like, because your work kind of has a very conscious, now I don't know how conscious is it, but it definitely has a conscious outcome of having good aesthetics, which blurs the line
Mhm.
a bit. And so where are you on that, like how do you I remember talking to Ayaz Basrai long time ago, not in this series but very long ago, and he said that good aesthetics is an outcome. You can't start off with aesthetics, then otherwise like
Mhm.
most of the things will look the same, right? So that
So
kind of line struck me, and then I'm still
I have to
contemplating,
say,
but where are you on this?
so I feel art and design pretty much serve the same goal, but the outcomes look very different, appear very different, because they're addressing the need for practicality and poetry on different levels. They converge and diverge at certain points. They're like on the extreme. When we talk about very practical design, say a component that works inside something, inside a bigger composition, like say a microchip or something, there's design in it, that doesn't manifest as art, but it is art, working with that
Hmm,
scale
hmm,
and that science and everything. So design and art, I feel, on two extremes. One is like an essay, another one is like a poem, so we might argue
hmm,
that, what does a poem do? It inspires, and design might inform, but an essay might inform and poem might inspire. So, but both serve the same function of, helping us as humans, helping us navigate this life, say physically and emotionally. So they serve a purpose, but when it comes to art, something like satire or something, I'm very fascinated. Even comics, you had Varun Grover on your show. I love him. I met him once, and they're like a lot of this stand-up comedians. Who are not just there to tell cheap jokes and make people laugh, but who are satirists. So they do a great job of even artists who do a lot of satire, like in their sketches and stuff and art, they actually serve a very practical purpose of shaping us as a society, giving that, making people dare to think in that direction. People, a lot of people have been avoiding, as a society, we avoid a lot of uncomfortable questions, but satirists come and jokingly put it out there, be it in forms of comedy or physical art. So they force us, they stretch our imagination to think that way. So I think that's also a very practical need. Not everything physical essential, but also in our human journey, that satire, that art is also important. It's not just something to admire and look at, but it actually
Hmm.
shapes our thought. That I feel. Well,
Hmm.
it's
Hmm.
very vast, but just to put in simple words, I can say that
Correct,
art is
correct,
also
correct.
practical.
No, no, yeah.
And
I
if it's
mean, I completely.
if done well, it helps us. If it's not done, there's like everything, there's good and bad art, there's good and bad design. And another thing is, I feel a designer or an artist, who is self-indulging is like a narcissist who really doesn't care about people. That's why I feel, this anthropology, sociology, it keeps us humble that, you're actually catering to someone rather than amusing yourself. That makes us better designers and human beings, I feel.
Beautiful, beautiful. I get it, and I connect also, resonate also at multiple levels. In fact, I have interviewed Harish Shivaramakrishnan, who's actually a singer and also a designer. So he's the head of design at Cred, and he keeps talking a lot about art and design, being almost synonymous to him, right? Obviously, and it's not really black and white. It's not really. I'm married to this particular idea, but it's kind of somewhere in, and that's why I call it blurring lines until like we reach a firm conviction. But I liked your way of putting it, prose and poetry. I think that's a close enough good insight.
Try it.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, in your introduction, I also spoke about that you did woodworking, right? And I wanted to just like double click on it. In your article, you said wood is quite a humble material. Like, what made you consider that? Like, and how has that kind of helped you in being a designer, or like being physical with the product itself, right? Being closer to the material. Any learnings, insights there through wood?
I feel wood is quite versatile and ubiquitous and quite sustainable. I mean, like you just put a seed and the tree grows out, and it has a life cycle, and you're using that biomass for like very diverse things. Making furniture, making houses, making shelters and whatnot. And it's very humble. It can become very raw. It can be used very raw in terms of making a hut in some forest, quick fix kind of a thing. Or you can use CNC, and you can produce great art with it, the same wood. So it's so versatile and humble. It can take anything. And it has made it's one of those materials. We talk about iron age, this age, that stone age and everything. That's because wood has been you know all through that. The
Hmm.
wheel possibly was first made in wood. Someone just rolled a log and felt, this goes. So it taught us as a human species that there are like a lot of possibilities. Still we make the wheels, right? Like the bullock carts, we still have those
Correct.
wooden versatile wheels. So anybody with any kind of raw tools can shape anything which is useful. So it's quite fascinating. It has been through my journey as a
Hmm.
designer. I it's a material of choice for me. I've made very sophisticated, very complex mechanical lamps with it. And which is otherwise a very simple material. A lot of designers have done. There are artists who create beautiful carved woods, be it hand carved or CNC carved. So, and it's quite good for designers to young designers to explore wood, because it actually gives different possibilities which are other materials are very restricting. Plastic is, you can do only so much with it, which has a very negative connotation in terms of environment these days. So metal, again, it has to be extracted, refined, it has to be in certain alloy. Then working with metal gets very difficult. You can't just shape it. With wood you can, you can just sit on a desk and start chiseling away with a small tool. So
Correct.
that's why it's very humble. It just,
Yeah, yeah.
it's there.
So, but what? Yeah, what made you consider doing woodworking? As in, like, was it the love for like furniture, or was it like just exploring when you were kind of playing around, and then like I'm thinking, I'm asking from that lens that
Mhm.
um, if I'm a young designer,
Mhm.
would it be like really worth spending some time there
Mhm.
if I want to become a physical kind of a designer?
For me personally, I used to make little things when I was a kid, as a lot of kids do, but I used to take it again very seriously, I used to make miniatures. I had this habit of making miniatures. So I used to love wood, it used to be just around. You don't have to really get it from somewhere, because my grandfather had this farm, so if I have to have a pipe or something to make something, I have to take something which is very useful, and then I used to be get scolded for it. But wood was,
Hmm.
the twigs and wood was all, always there. No one would say no to it. So that way, I love it. As designers, we have to understand how to make. So wood is one of those materials which you can actually try with your own hands with a carpenter, even if you don't have the skills. You can sit with a carpenter and tell him to do this way or that way without even needing very complex drawings. So this material is very good for young designers too. Even in architecture, architecture students, if they use a lot of wood in their model making, that actually is very versatile. You can build any kind of model. Even if it's a block model, you can just take a chunk of wood, carve little openings out of it, and shape and say, this is a building mass or something. So that way, material of choice for learning, I would say,
Hmm.
design
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
making also.
Correct. So I also started with Massimo Vignelli's quote that if you can design one thing, you can design everything. How has been your journey, like comfortable in terms of switching these domains, trying out different products? What has been your learning, right? Because what again, the same question, like what advice would you give anybody for like such wide ranging interests? Because in our kind of culture, at least the ones
Mhm.
which we have been brought up, is that ek kuch karo, right? Like 10 cheeze mat karo, like pick up one thing. That has been the
Mhm.
narrative of at least from our previous generation. So where are you on that? Like it seems that your work has become versatile, but what are your observations in hindsight?
So for that, I feel, I mean, like if we have the tools, I mean, like tools to navigate the process of designing. I think if you like, it's right to say, you can, if you can design one thing, you can design anything. But we have to be informed. In today's world, we're not just working with old tools. Like, when in old times you just had like 4 to 5 materials to work with, and if you have an understanding of that, then you can pretty much do anything with that. But in today's time, I think we as designers, we have to be updated with new tools and technologies, as they evolve. So I feel it's good to feel that you can design anything, but it's sometimes you might overstep and be overconfident in doing something which might mess up. So challenging is good, and challenging updating yourself is good in terms of taking up new things. Because for me personally, I didn't train as an industrial designer, but I picked up a lot of tools which gave me the confidence to pursue. Understood woodworking, and then did furniture. But I always wanted to do this little accessories. This
Hmm.
was 2015, around that time, after the Godrej Design Lab thing. I wanted to do things on a smaller scale. It always fascinated me. So now I have a lot of accessories collaborators ask me to do. They feel I'm good at it, But there was a time when I couldn't even make a simple candle holder. This was 2015. So there's this one shabby piece, which I wanted to make something which is versatile, essential again, which works both as a tea light holder and a simple candle holder. So the end result, there was so much effort into design and making it with EDM wire cutting and all that. The result was so shabby in terms of design and aesthetic as well. So I still have that. We picked this up through my racing days. We call it. We used to have all these failed components hung up on the wall. We used to call it Hall of Shame. So you have to look at your mistakes. It has to it has to stare in your face, and it's a reminder that you have to do it well. For the amount of energy. So for that, you have to update your understanding as well. When you're going into a new field, you're taking up a new project. If you don't have the proper understanding of it, it's better to acquire those tools and then get into it.
Got it. Cool. I have last two questions. One which you kind of are quite passionate about is that trying to make stuff which is kind of has a global appeal, right? Like thoda sa cultural context bhi chahiye, but the product has to finally emerge out as something which appeals to a larger audience, right? And in India, at least from whatever I know, is that we have always seen innovation through a little bit of lens of jugaad, right? I mean, like jugaad has been kind of the primary motivation, and then like some innovation has kind of emerged from there. You have certain opinions on that. Like, what would you say that what would it take for us to and especially this jugaad becomes very, very apparent when, for me now, when I've moved here in Singapore, there are different ways of working. There are certain processes which can be implemented to get a better output, a predictable way of working, and then still achieving that great outcomes, right? We have kind of tried a more hacky way. So what are your thoughts around that? And then what could be the way of looking at things for young designers instead of trying this hack or jugaad?
So that's a topic which is quite close to my heart. So I actually made a art piece, where we it's like a satire, I would say, just to educate my clients, to say, what's jugaad and what's design. It was a car I broke into and created something. So we have a beautiful tradition, as any other culture. India also has a beautiful tradition of frugality. All the civilizations were very frugal. They had to do most of what was available to them. So that's a good thought. That's a very like how we call sustainable design. So that was a beautiful frugal way of doing things. But now we use that heritage of ours, for a very in a very distasteful way, to escape doing something better. We as Indians, we mess up our opportunities to do something significant. That's why we have lacked that competitive edge. When we say China is our competitor, right? So we have lacked that edge. So, and we have this hangover to hold on to that, which has not let us move ahead in this race to do better things. Possibly we could have done a lot better than we are doing today, and design and even manufacturing lacks that. So there's a very hungover idea of the way things are done, like how you said, like we've been told to just do this and do not do that. Like as parents, our parents have put us on a very structured path. The same thing works in industry. Whenever we approach a vendor, so we might have a small product to make, a prototype to make, and they're like, this is how it can be done. That's the way, and he's not able to think out of the box and say, I'll try, let me fail. So that has this jugaad, the easy way out has hindered our innovation. There's a lot of bright people, who end up not achieving their full potential because of this, on an
Hmm.
individual level or on an organization level. So in even in education, this has become a very hindering thing. While I was doing my thesis, I wanted to do something conceptual. This was 2010, so 9, 10. I wanted to do something again with my cultural and curiosity, I would say. I wanted to make something that is more circular. The term hadn't evolved yet, that cradle to cradle kind of a thing. But I thought,
Hmm.
architecture, buildings, they consume a lot of CO2. But that's not only one thing. That global warming, that's not the best way of looking at environmental degradation we have. We use a lot of resources. All these wars are happening because of resources, right? Like almost all the wars. So
Correct.
my thought was, why not reuse? Like, how in cars, you reuse the tires, at least at the best, at the worst, the materials are recycled. So in architecture, that I didn't see that happening. Everything was just gone to dump. You mix cement and sand, and everything is dumped away, when the life cycle of the building is over. When I presented the synopsis to my faculty, and they were like, you can't do this. And I was like, why not? Every other architecture student, university allows this. And they were like, you can't do it because in India we want to make you skilled enough at the end of 5 years to be able to make a building, design a building that is buildable. And I was like, yeah, that will do all our lives. This is this is the time I have to explore my ideas. I have to this is my formative time, and I have to shape myself. I just don't want to be a facilitator for construction industry. This is the time we can push ourselves to generate new ideas, and exercise something which may not be practical yet. And I wasn't allowed to do that. So but somehow I felt, I'll lose this opportunity, and I didn't give that exam. I didn't appear for that
Hmm.
exam, and we had the opportunity of, if you not submitted this time, so the following semester you could just dump your project, complete project, without
Hmm.
even their consent. Somehow, I explored that loophole, and that project, I got distinction for it somehow. And this following year, it was exhibited in London Design Festival. So that time I
Okay.
learned, we have to expand our horizons. This boundary can't hold us. And as Indians, we have to look beyond these educational and industry norms to do something. That gave me the confidence to pursue different clients. It was difficult pitching those ideas. If you pitch 10 ideas, only one gets materialized. So in that sense, we have to come out of that jugaad, that easy way out. We have to take the value of frugality, because we are a big population. So we have to be frugal with our resources, not our effort.
Wow, beautiful. That's a very important point. Yeah. Hmm. Yeah. Education has been like my another very interest areas. Cool. So I'll conclude with one last question, which is again like actually extending from what you said about the education piece and the jugaad piece. Is that what do you then wish the new designers or the upcoming generation of designers with this make in India generation, right? Like how can they push the boundaries of design? Like you have been a kind of like a faculty in different schools. So, what is your observation of this talent and talent pool? And generally, what would be your tips to push really the boundary of design from a Indian ethos, or which obviously can appeal to a wider audience?
So I would say, we have to, like they say, do the hard things first. So we have to push ourselves. We have to see ourselves, visualize ourselves, imagine ourselves as international designers. So that will actually, shape us, and motivate us to challenge ourselves and see if we can be competent on a global level, because uh, it's all economy, right? Like, when we talk about make in India, so that can only happen because we have to have competitive products that can compete with anything that is out there. So we can't give the excuse that we from the East can't do it, because if you see Japan, or recently South Korea, they have come way ahead, of what they used to be. That we pretty much started at the same point. So we have to have that kind of mentality, where we can confidently say that we can do it, and only then we'll be respected for our output, be it in terms of design or manufacturing. That's the reason I feel the make in India hasn't picked up, because we have to show like how we as designers make prototypes. We have to show to the world out there, like what we're capable of. At this point I feel we are only making in terms of exports, predominantly we have just tech labor. We've just been competent in that one field. Design relatively has been very lacking. So I think that has to start at young age, because designers who are already in the profession, they're formed, they're fixed and formed. So now the younger generation has a huge opportunity, because we have all this information that is coming out. Back when I was in college, there was not much on the internet. YouTube wasn't what it is today. So you have all these beautiful podcasts. You can listen to any lecture anywhere. TED Talks, and so the more informed we are, more we think globally, I think we will be able to put out great output. And we have that population dividend. With having so many young people, I think we should be able to encourage more innovation. We lack innovation because we always feel like laborers, working for something. So that thought which was there in us from our which was inculcated in us through the royalty of the bygone era, we have to come out of that, and we have to really achieve something big, and we have to be fast. The scale at which things are moving, we have to do it fast.
Correct. No, I think that's a good note to end this, where if you want to be like, in fact, I was like discussing today with one of my colleagues, and actually not colleagues, he's like a senior person in the same organization, and he was saying like, if you want to become a leader, first think like a leader. So
Yeah.
I think that's what you
Makes
also
sense.
said,
Very
and
much
that's what,
makes sense.
yeah, that's what is like a good positive note to end this. Thanks, Saif, for giving your time, and
It's
it
my
was great
pleasure.
talking to you. And that's it from today's Gyan session. For show notes and more Gyan, visit audiogyan.com. And if you wish to connect with me, I am at Audiogyan Moments on Instagram. Until then, take care.